I often look at American life as a funnel. We're dressed up for the first day of kindergarten in matching outfit sets. Then we go to grade school where there's a time for play, a time for homework, a time for dinner, and a time for bed. Next, we go to middle school, orthodontist offices, bad haircuts, and American Eagle jeans. Then we're further shuffled along this straight, narrow, unquestioned path into high school. High school for me is a blur of waking up at 5 to work at the Bismarck Tribune, being the student body president, the state student council president, the editor of the Century Star, a mentor and tutor to at-risk and troubled teens, a friend, a sister, a girlfriend. All of which I did for my own love and compassion for the people I was working with and for. But also because I knew that in the bigger scheme of things, I'd walk across a stage, shake a hand, and get a diploma to go to college. Because I was told that's what's next. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job. So that's what I did. But what saved me from this becoming the perfect storm of fulfilled expectations was a book I read when I was 10. It's an eyewitness book about Greece. And when I returned it to the Bismarck Public Library, I promised myself that I would move to Greece when I turned 18. So I did. And thus began the meltdown of my 18-year funnel. Because from Greece, I traveled through Europe. From Greece, I moved to Spain. From Spain, I moved to Azerbaijan for a brief moment. And from Azerbaijan, I'm going back to Spain in the fall to finish my American degree in Madrid. Once I graduate, I'd like to move to Southeast Asia for a year, move to Ghana for a year, and move to Chile for another year to teach and learn and travel. Then I want to work at National Geographic, and at some point, I want to improve the state of education on Native American reservations. Now, for some, this sounds like temporary insanity. For others, like permanent misery, and for some, like a fun idea. And that's why I'm not here to say, move abroad, start booking tickets, and go to a new school. But what I'm here to say is that there's a way to live your life so that you don't need breaks from it. There's a way to live that you plan purposefully, and you're not influenced by the intentions of those around you. So, there are 3 things you need to realize in order to come to this pursuit of your version of the best. First, that it's nobody's job but your own to begin this pursuit. Second, that you must find what you believe in so you stand firmly and don't easily tip over into this funnel I'm talking about. And third, that there will never be the right time to do this because things will always get in the way, but you have to do it anyway. You see, we have to let things change our life. Because different doesn't mean scary, and we're on this path, it seems, as a society where the path of least resistance, anything besides it, begins to look like the path of lions and tigers and bears, and that's not true. Different isn't scary, different is right, and different is for you. It's for all of us. So like I said, you have to let things change your life. So the first part I put on about this is that it's nobody's job but your own to begin this pursuit of your best. You see, this life that we're expected to live is a lot like life bureaucracy, except instead of a red form and a yellow form to get a blue form, we need a job, a house in suburbia, and 3 kids by the time we're 32. And why? Because it's practical. It's what we're expected to do, but what about these things? What about the things that made you feel alive as a child? That, those aren't the voices to be silenced. The voices to be silenced is anyone else telling you that you ought to do something else because it's more suitable and sensible and practical. But that's a bunch of nonsense. But it's hard to realize that it's nobody's job but your own. Because, a lot of times we like to blame our sisters and our brothers and our moms and our family businesses for planning our life for us and not giving us the chance to do what we wanted to do best for ourselves in the world. But you ought to do it. Because in the end, you're going to get a cocktail of excuses from humans of every shape and size, saying no because this, no because this, no because this, and you have to say yes because of me. Yes, because this is my plan. Because what it comes down to is you signing up and being told no, but holding on to the yes you believe in. Now, I know it'll be hard. Believe me, I've had panic attacks and called my friends crying and all sorts of things. But what changes it is that I have found what I believe in. So I'm standing firmly. And you have to find that too. Otherwise, it's not going to be so easy to silence out the people telling you that there's something else for you instead of what you have for yourself. And I'm going to tell you 3 stories of really great people that I've met traveling to illustrate this point. Once upon a time, I was in Lithuania. I was standing at the Hill of Crosses, which is a really, really powerful place to stand. So much so that I forgot to take the last bus to the train station to get to the city I was staying in, and it was getting dark and I had to go. So, I'm sorry, Mom, but I hitchhiked. And I was picked up by an ambulance. And the driver of this ambulance was a man from China who had always loved Lithuania. Since he was young, he loved the history and the culture and the language. And he'd also always wanted to be an EMT. So, when he became of age, he learned the language, he learned the culture, and he moved to Lithuania to be an EMT. And that was so poetic to me. It was so beautiful that this man had put the 2 things that meant the most to him and that he knew he could best give the world together. And he did it, and he made a life of it, and it was wonderful. And on that same backpacking trip, I was held hostage for a short time in Latvia. Now, it was a drunk man. He was a bit confused, so it didn't last very long, but nonetheless, we sat on the floor, and I met a nice young woman from Algeria. And she was there because she loved hot air balloons. And consequently enough, it was Latvian Independence Day, and they just let off a ton of air balloons into the sky. So she traveled and looked at our hot air balloons and designed them as an engineer because that was her life. And she believed in the ability of a balloon to make people feel like a child again, for everyone on the ground to look up and realize that their limits are endless. She believed in that power, and she harnessed it, and she lived for it. Now, a third woman I met from Denmark, I stayed with her in Denmark. She had a sick hamster when she was 11. And this kind of began her infatuation with sick animals because she believed that there are a lot of lonely people in this world. And each of them needs a friend, and while humans aren't always as compassionate, animals will be. So with her sick hamster, who was her friend because her family moved a lot, she didn't want to lose it. And she didn't want anyone else to lose their companions. So she became a veterinarian. And since then, she's traveled around the world 1.5 times. She's floated in the king's pools in Arabia while taking care of camels and horses. She's lived with cannibals in New Guinea. She's slept with Komodo dragons on forest floors and lived a beautiful, poetic life because she followed what fueled her and what she knew to be her best gift to the world and her best gift to herself. Now, the thing is these stories all came together and they were just so great, but the sad part of it to me was that they all seemed so novel. They seemed like exceptions, like I shouldn't just remember people because they were living their story, because everyone should be living their story the best they can write it, the best they can live it. But you will always remember the people who you meet, down to the moles on their faces and the shoes on their feet, for living their best story. They'll always stick out to you. Now, there's never going to be this perfect time to begin this pursuit of your best because things always get in the way. And I know that sick parents and finances and mortgages happen, so I'm not saying run away. What I'm saying is run in the direction you want to be going so that when construction work and mud pits and roadblocks get in your way, you will slow, fix the problem, but when you can, you'll get up and start running again in your direction that you plan for yourself. I'm a taxi driver this summer, and I have this man who I drive to kidney dialysis a few times a week. And every time he gets in my taxi, he says, number 84, that's my taxi number. I worked my whole life at a job that I hated because that's what my family business was, so I did it anyway. And in the end, he was saving every month so that him and his wife could finally live when he retired. But the moment he retired, he got sick. And now 4 times a week, 4 hours a day, he goes to kidney dialysis, and he's stuck there. And he can't travel, and he can't do whatever he wanted with his wife. And he always says, don't you dare work a job that you don't love, and don't you dare work for anything that you don't want to be working for. And that is so true, because you have to throw life curveballs while you can, and before it starts throwing them back. I met another man in Madrid. He had a job lined up with a Fortune 500 company for the day he graduated from college. But before he graduated, he went to a meeting where there was free pizza. And at this meeting, he learned about teaching English in Spain. So he called his future boss and said, I'm sorry, sir, but I won't be coming. I'm going to move to Spain and teach English. And that's what he did. And he was throwing life curveballs before life could throw them back. I have 4 younger siblings. And every day I see their joys and their passions and this fluidity of childhood that we all had, but was taken from us because we believed that we had to get on a path of step after step after step. And I think that anything that would take that from them has to be one of the biggest evils amongst us, because each of us deserves more than that. We deserve to live the life we planned. We deserve a masterpiece instead of a beige life. Because you can fail at what you love, and you can fail at what someone else loves for you. But you might as well unravel in a job interview for a job that you love, rather than one that somebody else thought you should apply for. Because when you change the way you think and act, you empower not only yourself, but everyone around you to do the exact same. And when you do that, you give them this excuse to not be falling into the tunnel of the funnel, but to climb up and see the view from the top of what they've created for themselves and others. And when you empower others, it might sound a little trivial right now in this tumultuous world that we're living in, go live your dream, go do your thing. But I want you to think about something. If you change the way that you decode your life, so it's no longer an A leads to B, leads to C process, you can shift yourself, but also those around you to think the same. And when you do that, after reaction after reaction, maybe someday conflict doesn't always necessitate war. Maybe power much less leads to corruption. Because when you shift the way you think and act, you slowly destruct this awful thing that I've called the funnel. Thank you.